Wholeness, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Josh. Let me start this over again. Wholeness, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Josh Dippold, Integrating Presence, yada, yada. And today is another Open Wisdom Wednesday. And this is Irregular Wisdom Office Hours, where I ask unplanned, general, and specific questions for your wisdom, and you ask me. In the meantime, we share openly, likely from whatever is currently happening, to get at our wisdom. So I was thinking of topics for today, and if no one has any pressing, urgent wisdom needs or wants to share, then I thought about this notion of money and charging for spiritual things, quote unquote spiritual things. And the most entertaining image came to me this morning of we've been having a hawk land in our backyard of the Airbnb here in Sarasota. And it came to me that, we don't run out there to that hawk and say, hey, you need to pay rent. You can't be in the backyard unless you pay up, right? Or if some mystic or something gets visited by an angel, the angel doesn't come in and say, hey, you need to pay your local currency, or our currency. You need to get it transferred into our local currency before I can give you the downloads and messages, right? Or if you're assailed by a demon, we can't take the demon to court, get reparations, get damages. So it just seems like this ludicrous notion of the only beings that I know of that deal in this thing called money are humans. But I get it both ways. So right now, my work is mostly on a donation basis with what I do. And, one of the things I hardly ever ask for in these live events, so I don't seem like some preacher or something, is ask for donations all the time, but you're supposed to be a requirement. And so I looked into this, and I have a thing on noble giving. So if you're interested in that, reach out. If you can't find it, it's pretty prominent on my work. You can find that. And I want to just go through a couple of things today on just ideas in general of money, but I wanted to see what you guys think of this. Do you feel if you're on Insight Timer, of course, you guys pretty much all agree that, this notion of generosity, of donating to teachers or getting a plus membership to help support the free version of the platform, help others do the free thing, and then get an exchange for that. And then they share a little bit with the teachers depending on engagement. But what about people? Have you met people where they say, oh, you should never charge for anything on a spiritual basis, And I say yes and no. One hand, we all have to pay bills. Some of the work that people do takes quite a lot of time and energy. And some people pay heavy prices for the amount of quote unquote work, inner work, spiritual work that they do and take risks to bring it to the public. So in order to get compensation like that, sometimes in some cultures, people don't want to pay for or don't have the means to pay, or maybe it's not socially acceptable for things like this, either giving or buying spiritual material. There's so much free things out there too, you know. So how do you guys feel about this one way or the other? I'm open to both ways. Now, one thing I will say though is if teachings are given to me for free and where they get them is free and on down the line, right? It seems pretty irresponsible for me to charge something for that, especially if I'm parroting it or saying it pretty much word for word of what it's been given time after time, lineage after lineage for free. Now, totally, I agree with that. That then shouldn't be capitalized and seized on when it's pretty clear that these should be free offerings. But what about, creative material? We get into these notions of libraries too, right? You can actually spend the time to go to a library and check out a book for a certain amount of time for free. And, this is a whole nother thing. There was a case in the news years ago about, Oh, there's plenty of them. Go into that, but I'll just go into a couple of my thoughts um, on money here. And I'm open to many perspectives on money, which is an idea at its core. One skillful and wise constant, though, is the ethical gain and use of money. Likely one of the most important questions is, what amount of control does money have in your life? Currency can be perceived as a representation of power, and there's also the flip side of the power and freedom of zero fear and concern if happening to be penniless the rest of one's life, meaning that, people kind of can be controlled through money, right? Not having enough money. They fear being thrown out on the streets, penniless, so they'll do things they normally wouldn't do in order to have a roof over their head and have their basic needs met. Money can be seen as an absolute joke on nearly all levels, contrasted with money being the main way to effect serious, meaningful mass change, even with small amounts. This notion of voting with your dollar, your currency, that people in business and they pay attention to this, right? Where money is being spent, then it draws more people and resources, and people take notice of what's being spent on. Being conscious with money is dealt with on a case by case basis, earning, spending, investing, giving, and receiving with discernment. We find balance and middle ground with others' perspectives and intents with money while retaining option to stick to your ethical gain, so to speak. So in that, I mean, we look at spending money on a case by case basis, and we can be open to people's intents and perspectives around money, but we can stick to our guns, so to speak, on being ethical with it. Non-attachment to outcome with money matters, ideally with zero greed involved and bypassing usury if possible. Usury means uh, charging people interest on money just because you have money, then charging people money to make money on the interest. It's a whole nother ball of wax. We're not supposed to mention other people's work on Insight Timer. So there is a free resource on this that if people look up my information and are interested about how the whole financial system works, underneath there's a free book I can point them to online, but I'm not going to name drop it here because it's against the rules, but I will just reach out to me on my profile here on Insight Timer / integrating presence, and I'll send you that because I think a lot of people in the financial industry have no idea even how the whole money system works. So greed is a big thing around this too, right? That's the big no around money, because when it comes to that, that's when that's one of the poisons, the unwholesome roots. And it's not just with money too. Greed is a huge issue, along with ill will and ignorance and delusion. Money is secondary to life lessons. Experiences happen with or without any certain amount of money. We can always make more money. We can't always get time back. Marcy says, hi, Josh and everyone. Hey, Marcy. How's it going? Good to see you again. Rob says, there's a TV show in the UK called Rich House, Poor House. Quite interesting, the lifestyle differences of families with and without financial security. And there's a huge income disparage. There's a huge income gap, or meaning that there's an ultra rich and ultra poor, especially in the United States and the UK. From what little I've seen in the UK firsthand, there it exists there quite as much too. But in the States, it's really noticeable. Even just going around Sarasota today, seeing super rich houses on Siesta Key and some of the lower end neighborhoods here. But in Denmark, as far as little I've seen in Denmark when I've lived there, there's not the huge ultra rich, ultra poor to the amount that there is in the UK and the United States. So how do we take this spiritually, or when we're doing ethical, when we're viewing the world, when we're viewing our own self-worth and our own value, when we're interacting with people in the marketplace, when we're giving, when we're being generous, how does all this play in to it? all the way through political systems too. Angel says, it's challenging for me to have a healthy relationship with money, but I try to see it neutrally. It's what people do with it that has a positive or negative impact. That's right, Angel. I mentioned that previously here. And yes, and being honest with ourselves too, about how we view it and see it, and that sometimes it's a learning process. Some of us have kind of have more mastery over it or more balance, and some of us are still learning, and the emotional link behind this as well. Um, yes, does it have a positive, negative impact, or as well as is is it having a helpful impact, because sometimes the positive negative is a good way to look at things, but I find that sometimes I get, you know, down on negativity, so to speak, or the other way around, like, oh, there's toxic positivity. And so these really polarities I find helpful to balance somewhat, but then look at what's skillful and wise around money, what's helpful and needed as well. Yes, but I mean, polarity is a huge lesson too. So we have to learn how to. Well, I don't know if we have to, but I find polarity is an interesting learning tool. Can be in balancing that. Okay, so going on with my thing here, I have it ties into the next one. Evil, good, positive, negative, neutral, etc. associations with money can possibly be transmuted from one to the other depending on intent, actions, and conditions. If done wisely, this and other creative uses of money can often be beneficial. Money is also an expression of value slash energy current. How much you value yourself and your work. The more creational influence your work has, the more value it has. The more effect it has, the more outcome you will get energetically from what you're producing. And I think that idea comes from my fiance. And again, yeah, it's pretty wild, but just money system is just one energetic system that was created by a small group of people, or at least maintained and controlled by a small group of people. So we also, I feel, need to know that it's not the only system for exchange for value. We can do all kinds of other things, like barter and trade. People can have actually start their own banks. We can. I don't know about our own currency creation. It gets a little bit, I don't know, cryptocurrency, that's a whole nother ball of wax now. But there's other ways to exchange value and energy without the official thing, as long as we're following the laws, right, and we're not doing anything illegal, of course. But we don't need to be locked into a particular one. Although we can, obviously participate a little bit and withdraw participation, explore these other options that are so possible now. And this actually comes from the Buddha's Q&A with um, Atavaka, which I think was a demon. Actually, it's a whole interesting story. And what is a man's or a woman's highest wealth? Conviction or confidence is a woman's or man's highest wealth. How does one find wealth? Doing what is fitting, enduring burdens. One with initiative finds wealth. So this notion of what is man's highest wealth, conviction or confidence, which is really interesting. I don't have much conviction. I think I have enough confidence, but conviction, I'm not really have a bunch of conviction about a bunch of things other than perhaps truth or knowing reality, something that's in alignment with reality. Otherwise, it's just fake, false, waste of time, pointless. And how does one find wealth? Doing what's fitting, which is open for interpretation, right? Enduring burdens, that's really interesting. And then if you have initiative, then one finds wealth. Well, guys, I want to keep this to 15 minutes, and we've got 30 seconds about here, according to my time. Thank you all for joining, and may you all be blessed with the optimal ideal amount of wealth and well-being that it brings, and the creativity and usefulness, helpfulness around it. Bye now, and you're all welcome. Bye.